Alright, we got here a shingle dimensional roof, and I'm going to show you how to inspect it, or how I inspect it. So always one of the first things I do when I come up on a roof like this is see how many layers it has. And what I normally do is just lift it up like this, or you can use a screwdriver. And what you want to do is see the sheathing. You want to see the underlayment right there, that tar paper, and you want to see if it's flashed. So right here you got your main shingle covering, and then you got the starter layer, which is right underneath it, which is what you want to see. You got your felt. In this case we got 30-pound felt. Usually it's either going to be 30, 15, or synthetic. And then we got a roof sheathing, which is underneath it. We usually OSB, plywood, it could be planks depending on the age. And this is all more for informational purposes. Sometimes you won't be able to see the sheathing because the felt will go down and you'll see like drip edge flashing coming over here, but in this case they don't have any drip edge flashing. This is a problem in and of itself right now, because what's going to happen here over time is as the water comes down this shingle roof, capillary action, water is going to come up this way, and then it's going to damage the edge of the roof sheathing here. So over time, even though this is new right now, within a few years this is all going to be shot, unless they put in either drip edge flashing, which is like an L piece that goes, usually you want it to be under the felt and over the sheathing board, and it comes down this way so water can't get in, or you can have a gutter lip that goes over this, or probably a combination of both. So sometimes when you got the gutter and the drip edge flashing installed, you won't see the sheathing it is, so you can't verify how many layers it has. But if you can see it, then you can kind of make that determination. So right now this roof looks actually pretty new because the sheathing here looks new. So I don't know if they're going to put in flashing and gutters later, but that's the first problem I see. So one of the first things I like to do when I get on the roof is basically just get an overview of the roof, and I'll snap a few pictures, determine the type of roof it is. So this roof here is a gable design, and you can tell because the ends go all the way over there. See that roof over there is a gable as well. The other design for shingle roof, which is pretty common, is a hip roof. Those are the most common styles. And we have here a dimensional shingle, otherwise known as architectural shingles. And these shingles, they can last anywhere from 30 to 50 years. The field shingles, usually you'll get that life. A lot of times the ridge shingles will go out sooner, probably within 15 years you'll start to see it deteriorate. And a lot of times, now we're facing south here, actually we're facing north, but the shingles here are facing south. A lot of times the shingles on the south will wear out faster, so the granules will start to come off and you'll start to see the fiber mat exposed. And that's because on these type of roofs, or any type of roof, the south side gets a lot more exposure because of the sun. And usually what I've seen is the lower the slope, the more deterioration you kind of get. So what we want to do is basically go through the roof, and we're looking for a lot of problems. One of the first problems that we're looking for are any signs of damaged shingles. Damaged shingles, missing shingles. We're looking for shingles that have been misplaced, maybe shingles that have not been nailed down properly, shingles that have not been installed properly. And something like this, where it's a new roof, you're going to expect to see little to no problems. You're assuming a competent roofer has done it, but that's not always the case. But as I go through a roof, I'm just checking to see what immediate problems stand out. Like right here, I'm seeing a damaged sheathing board right underneath there. I don't know what happened. Looks like someone stepped on it, but that is a prime area for water intrusion. So I'm not going to step in that area or around there because I don't want to fall through. Don't ask me how I know. But you just want to kind of go get an overview and a feel for any type of obvious immediate defects. The chimney's been demoed. They're Well, it's in the process of being demoed. So as I'm going through the roof, I'm also looking at the coarse exposure. If you guys don't know what that is, coarse exposure basically is the distance from the edge of the shingle, the bottom, to the top. So from here to up here. And looking at it, it's about 5 inches is what you typically want to see. And if it's not that, if it can be lower, like what it's at right now right here, but it can't be higher. And the reason why is because the way they install these shingles is that those fasteners that they put in, you don't want them to be too close to the edge, or otherwise water could get in. And so coarse exposure is pretty big. I don't really come across that issue too much these days, but it's just something that you want to be aware of and look out for as well. Another thing is you want to check for offset. Offset is basically what you have right here, the edge, the side edge of a shingle where it butts up to the next one, and then you go up to the layer either above or below, or the row, and then you want to make sure this offset here from these edges here are at least 4 inches. And that's just the way shingle manufacturers require installation. If this is less than 4 inches, that could be a problem, may not be warranted by the manufacturer, and are signs of an improper roof installation. And when you go through things, a lot of times when you start your roof inspection, right away you'll start to see issues come up. If there's going to be issues or if you have an incompetent installer or a bad installation, you're going to see more than one signs. And so that's kind of like your indication that you really need to kind of pay attention, because if there's a problem in one area, most likely there's going to be a problem in a different area. So on this roof here, one thing I'm going to call out here is debris, which is pretty common in this valley here. I'm guessing they had a lot of trees here in the past that they took down, but you got some leftover debris here. Got debris in the gutter, which should be cleaned out as well. Now, one problem I see right over there is that I don't see any kick-out flashing. Kick-out flashing basically goes at the end, the first row, that diverts water coming down against that wall, and instead of going at the wall adjacent to the gutter, it kicks out water into the gutter. Now you do got an overhang here that will limit the amount of water this area gets, so it may not be an issue, but you could have wind-driven rain that hits it sideways, and you want to really limit the amount of water that hits that wall. And so that kick-out flashing, which goes under the stucco and under the shingle, and then like a diagonally shaped piece, the flashing kicks out the water as it's going down, kicks it out into the gutter. So that's missing right there. Another thing you want to call out is flashing that's kind of lifting up like that. You want to make sure everything is nailed down. Usually they'll pop in a nail on each side, and then they'll patch the nails on top. Another thing you're checking for is you're looking at all the penetration points, which would be these pipe jacks and vents. It could be a chimney, but you want to make sure that all the flashing is properly installed, meaning that you have basically just check for what you think could be a problem. The way that water moves is that water starts to go down from the top, and so as long as everything is properly installed, the way the water comes in is not going to lead to any problems where, like say, if you had this flashing installed on top of the shingle, or the top of the flashing installed above the shingle. So everything should be installed in a way where everything is being overlapped properly. So this would be correct because the flashing here on the bottom is installed under the upper shingle, and the shingles as they go down overlap as needed, so that when water comes down you're not having any issue with water going underneath. Another thing is you want to make sure you check all your storm collars. Sometimes these get brittle and wear out over time, so this is a pretty common problem where it's just basically just maintenance that's needed. They just need to reseal them, put in a new collar. Got another flashing here that's kind of lifting up. You just want to make sure that gets nailed down and patched. Now in this house they're doing a lot of repairs, so I don't know why this vent here is missing, but you got a missing vent cap. And if you look down there, you can see the roof sheathing is exposed. I'm assuming that's gonna get covered here. Now I'm trying to determine the age. I know I said when I first came up on this roof that the roof looks new because that OSB sheathing there looked pretty new. But I'm thinking now that that portion has been repaired, because looking back here, it doesn't look like it's been installed as recently. And a good way to kind of find out the age of a roof is actually to look at the shingles. One, you're checking for granules, obviously, and right here you can kind of see the edges of the granule starting to deteriorate, and you're starting to see the fiber mat exposed, like right there. And again, you're seeing this all on the south side and not on the northern side, because this side is getting a lot more sun. So that's one indication for age. Now obviously, if you can find out the installation date from either the owner or the agent, or how old the roof is, that would be your primary source. But a lot of times we don't have the luxury of getting that information, so we kind of have to make a general determination of when the age is. Now I don't say exactly how old the roof is in terms of like exact age. I don't say it's like 18 years old, 19 years old. Just for inspection purposes, for liability, I usually just say first half, middle, second half. If it's a brand new roof, you can tell, I'll say beginning, or I'll say at the end or near the end. I don't go into specifics because you're not called to do that. Neither are you expected. You just go off a general range. So to determine the general range, I look at the signs of any signs of deterioration. What I also like to do too is go towards an edge of a shingle, and you want to touch a piece that is a single layer, like this right there. You don't want to do this one, which is double. It's hard to flip over, and what I like to do is just kind of gently fold it over, and if it snaps off, that's usually an indication it's on the older side. If it does curl over like that without giving and breaking off, then it's typically a newer roof. And what I also like to do is kind of look for any signs of moss. If there's moss on the roof, minimum I would say it's at least 10 to 12 years old. More likely to be within 15 years if moss is building up either in the valleys, on the shingles on the southern side. If you see that, then that's an indication it's at least 15 years old. So this roof here, because there's no signs of any moss, the shingles do bend over. I'm seeing a little bit of deterioration, which can be common, but not a big concern. I'm guessing this roof is probably about 5 years old. And why are these shingles deteriorating? I don't know. I mean, sometimes it could be manufacturer issues. It could be, the sun, but it is happening. It's not a big concern. You can really just avoid not, saying anything about it, because it's not an issue right now, and it doesn't usually affect the purchase of a property decision. So yeah, I'm guessing this roof is probably about 5 to 10 years, around there. So here's another overview of the roof. And one thing I also want to mention is that as you're walking the roof, you'll be checking for signs of any soft spots. You're looking for any dips. You're looking for any signs of unevenness. As you look across, you want to take note of that, because that could be an indication of there either being some type of dry rot underneath. It could be a structural issue. It could be maybe there's more than one layers on one side. I've seen it where people have put one layer in the front and then they'll leave 2 layers in the back. These shingle roofs, you don't want to have more than 2 layers. So if you see something like that, that they did that because they were just trying to save money, didn't want to rip off the entire roof. Maybe they had a problem with one side of the roof, like the southern side gave out, so they replaced only the front section of the roof, in which case you want to make sure all the shingles, whether the shingles have been replaced or not. You're taking note of all this information, and you're kind of using it to make your assessment and write up the report. Now for roof inspections, I don't really, if it's a roof only inspection, I don't go into the house to go look for signs of any water problems or previous water issues. That's not typically under the scope of just a roof inspection, although you can do it if you have access and if you want to be more thorough or more comprehensive. But 9 times out of 10, you're going to see your problem on the roof itself. If it's a roofing issue, a water intrusion issue, you're going to see the problem on the roof, whether it's the missing shingle, it's the damaged shingle and sheathing board back there. And so the majority of my roof inspections are done from the top, and I'll get into more about how to do roof inspection if it's a much bigger roof. I do use drones. I wouldn't recommend that for someone that's just starting off. You want to be able to know how to inspect shingles or inspect roofs in general before you start using a drone to get on a roof, and that takes a lot of experience. It takes a lot of knowledge and the time to get to that place. So I know I didn't cover everything, but this is just kind of a quick, simple overview of this type of roof inspection on this roof. I'll be covering more in the future. If you have any questions, feel free to drop a comment down below. If not, thanks for stopping by. I'll see you later.